Hello everybody, Lotto for Life here, bringing us a brand new video. This time around we got a deck profile of Salamangreats. I've been looking forward to Salamangreats for a long while. I still remember when I first saw the deck and the set that they first came out, I was like, okay, this deck looks stupid if Konami does it right, and they did. So yeah, this deck is pretty stupid. I wouldn't say it's anything particularly like amazingly broken or anything. It's just a bit overwhelming with how much of a presence it has due to how good of a deck it is and how easy it is to get. So I know a lot of people are getting really annoyed with Salamangreats, but that's the really cool thing about this deck is that you don't have to chug out the $600, although it's probably a bit cheaper now that Impermanence has got to reprint, for impermanences and Phantasmiles in order to play the deck at its absolute peak. I've seen people do really well with budget Salamangreats because the deck is just that consistent and that good. So yeah, this is my take on budget Salamangreats. And if you guys have any ideas, recommendations, or concerns, please leave your comments down below. I do not always reply to comments, but I do read them. So let's get on to this. First and foremost, we got triple Gazelle. Kind of goes without saying, Gazelle is arguably the best card in the deck. It just makes all your plays work. Whenever a Salamangreat is sent to the graveyard, you can summon it from your hand just for free right then and there. And then whenever it's normal or special summon, you get to dump a Salamangreat card from your deck to the graveyard. Really good card overall, and he parries really well with Salamangreat Spinny. Spinny basically says once per turn you can discard him, or I believe it specifically says send to graveyard. No, it does say discard. Okay, cool. If you control a Salamangreat, target a monster on the field, it gains 500 attack. I thought for the longest time that was a quick effect, but it's not, which is a bit annoying because if this thing was a mini Kalut, that would have been wonderful because good lord does this deck need it. Anyway, so, and then if he's in your graveyard and control a Salamangreat monster, you can just summon him from your graveyard, but banish it when it leaves the field. So obviously you just basically combo really well with Gazelle because you can discard him while you control a Salamangreat monster. Gazelle summons himself, dumps another thing. This thing's affecting graveyard, special summon him from graveyard, making a Caesar Link. Really, really good. Moving on, we got triple AD Debug. I know some people are like, I know there's like a big debate whether or not you should play Buffalo or Debug. Personally, I go with both. I know I'm gonna get so much flack for this weird, crazy build of mine, but I love it. It works so well. So Debug, basically, whenever she's summoned, normal or specialed, you get to add a level 3 or lower Cybers from your deck to your hand, which of course can search out Gazelle or Spinny or anything else you need that happens to be in the deck, which the deck is comprised largely of level 3 or lowers. Speaking of level 3 or lowers, I got good old 2 Ash Blossoms in this deck. Ash Blossom works really well with this deck. It's recurable thanks to Sunlight Wolf, and of course it's arguably the best hand trap in the game. Alongside her though, I also played Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit to help kind of just control the board and be able to, stop my opponent from doing stuff during their turn. Speaking of Buffalo from earlier, I played 2 Buffalo. Basically, if this dude is removed from the field, doesn't matter if he's bounced or sent to graveyard or whatever, if he leaves the field, you can discard a Cyberse, draw 2. It's another way of thinning through your deck, getting some draws, and also, of course, getting Salamangreats in the graveyard because almost, oh god, it's like I'd say 80% of the Cyberse main deck monsters have a graveyard effect. So yeah. Speaking of a really good discard target for him, Salamangreat Foxy, whenever he's normal summoned, you can excavate the top 3 cards of your deck, add a Salamangreat card from amongst them to your hand, and then shuffle the rest back into the deck. And then if he's in your graveyard, you can discard a Salamangreat card, special summon him, and pop a face-up Spell Trap card on the field. There also has to be a face-up Spell Trap card on the field, if I remember correctly. Yeah, there has to be a face-up Spell Trap card. So yeah, pretty good card overall. You can only do one or the other effect, you can't do both, so you can't like normal summon him, get an excavation, get basically a search, and then link them off, bring them back from graveyard, and get a pop too. You can't do that, you don't get both. Moving on, I got 1 Salamangreat Beat Bison. I know some people really do not like this card one bit, but personally I do. So basically if this thing's in your hand and you have 3 or more Salamangreats in your graveyard, which is super easy to do, you can summon him from your hand onto the field in defense position, so he's another free summon. It does suck that he summons himself in defense position because he has 2,800 attack with 1,000 defense. Funnily enough, he's actually tied with the Fusion monster as having the highest attack of any Salamangreat monster, which is kind of funny and hilarious. Well, no wait, those are the same thing, but well. And then his other effect is you can return any number of your Salamangreat Link monsters in your graveyard up towards, I believe, 3. Up to number of face-up cards your opponent controls. Return them to the extra deck, then you can negate the effects of face-up cards your opponent controls equal to the number of dudes you shuffled back. So pretty good card overall, helps with all that and just kind of really just screwing over what your opponent's doing. I really wish it was a quick effect because that would make this thing really, really good, but it's not. You just basically get to recur your links into your deck and then you get to negate a bunch of stuff for the turn. Next we got one Jack Jaguar. This is another really good target for getting into graveyard with a Gazelle or something. If it's in your graveyard and you have a Salamangreat Link Monster in the field, you can shuffle back a Salamangreat from your a graveyard into your deck and then spell summon to a Link Zone one of your Salamangreats points to, which is pretty cool. Just helps with everything. He is also a Piercer too. He's 1800 with Piercing. That does come up every now and then, so that's pretty cool as well. One Salamangreat Falco. If he's in your graveyard, you can bounce one of your Salamangreats you control to your hand, special summon him from your graveyard, and then if he's sent from field to graveyard, you get to set one of your Salamangreats spell or trap cards directly onto your field. You can only do one or the other, you can't do both. And then we got one Salamangreat Foxer. This card is also pretty good. If you have 3 or more Salamangreats in your graveyard, you can discard her, pop a spell or trap card on the field. Then it has a summoning effect from graveyard that just never happens. It's just a free search for a popping spell or trap card. And spells and traps are the bane of this deck's existence. I'm going to be 100% honest. Even though this deck has a crap ton of back row hate in it, especially with Heat Leo, but even with that, the deck still loses to heavy back row very easily in my experience. One Salamangreat Mirror, another card I don't see people playing too often. It's basically, think, a Galaxy Soldier where you get to discard a dude to summon him from your hand. On top of that, if you happen to search him or draw him, you can reveal it and summon it from your hand right then and there without discarding, so it's pretty cool as well. One Salamangreat Mole. It's a Pot of Avarice in the graveyard if you control no monsters. And then if you have a Link Monster in your field, you can just summon into the Link Zone of a Link Monster that you have on the field. And then one Salamangreat Raccoon to round up the monsters. Raccoon is, like, honestly one of my favorite Salamangreats just because of how trolly this thing is. If your opponent declares an attack on one of your Salamangreat monsters, you can discard him. Basically make your Salamangreat to where it can't be destroyed by that battle, and then you gain life points equal to your opponent's monster's attack power. And I don't believe you take damage either from, target those 2 monsters that would battle, gain life points equal to the attack of that opponent's monster. Also, your targeted monster cannot be destroyed by battle this turn. When your Salamangreat monster destroys an opponent's monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard while this card is in the graveyard, you can add it to your hand. You can only do one or the other effect per turn, you can't do both. But however, one effect facilitates the other. Oh, your opponent attacks into him. Okay, ditch him, negate, basically negate the attack, gain life points, prevent your monster from getting killed that turn, or well by that battle. And then, okay, next turn, run over something, add them back to your hand. Really, really good card overall. It's more reactive than proactive and just kind of furthers the control aspect of Salamangreats and helps facilitate till you get to be able to, go for the OTK. And I really like the fact that you get a little bit of life points in it as well, so that's really helpful as well, especially with time and stuff. Moving on to the spells. We got triple Salamangreat Circle. This is a Rhoda for Salamangreats. It's that simple. It's a quick play spell card too, so you can do it during your opponent's turn, so you kind of get 2 searches if you happen to have multiples. On top of that though, if you have a Salamangreat monster that was, Salamangreat Link Monster that was link summoned using another copy of its same name, you can target that monster and it becomes unaffected by your opponent's monster effects until the end of the turn. You can only do one or the other effect, you can't do both. Really good card overall. You typically only use the searching effect, but the monster protection does come up every now and then, and it just is a really good card in general for the deck. Moving on, we got 2 Fusion of Fire. They're kind of flipping flopping between 1 or 2. Right now the deck does not have a way of easily searching out its spells and traps without going a roundabout way of doing it with a Gazelle and stuff, which I'm not a big fan of doing that roundabout way, but it does come in handy with certain cards. Although Fusion of Fire is not typically my first search unless I'm going for an OTK. That being said, Fusion of Fire is of course the fusion spell for the deck, and basically you get to fusion summon a Salamangreat fusion monster by using monsters on either player's side of the field to be able to go for the summon. It's a stupid card, I love it, it's great, it's counted as a Salamangreat card all the time, and it's just really, really nutty with how it's basically a super poly in a normal polymerization form. Moving on, I got 2 Will of the Salamangreat. I know some people kind of prefer 1, others prefer 2. I've seen some people max it out at 3. See, that's another thing that I really like about this whole archetype is that it's super flexible with how you can build it. So, yeah. Anyways, this card is basically a double summon. Once per turn, you can spell summon a Salamangreat monster from your hand or graveyard, and then also once per turn, but you can't do both effects in the same turn. You can do one or the other, you can't do both. You can target one of your Salamangreat Link Monsters that was Link summoned using a copy of another copy of itself, send this card to the graveyard, and then summon a number of Salamangreat monsters from your graveyard up to the link arrows of the monster you targeted. So like, if you have Heatleo who was summoned using another copy of himself, you can use this effect, target him, summon 3 monsters from your graveyard. It's really, really stupid and works really well with how that does, but it doesn't come up too often in my experience because typically you use the first effect to be able to go off and just continue on from there. And also you don't really want to send it to graveyard because you want to be able to keep plussing off of it, but however, like with the other spells, it's super easy to recur. I got 2 Sign It Backdoor. This card is a really nice search card. Basically, you banish one of your Cyberse you control, add another Cyberse monster from your deck to your hand that has lower attack than the monster you banished. During your next standby phase, after this card was activated, that monster that you banished returns to the field, and then it can attack directly that turn. It's a really, really nice card. Basically, lets you just kind of plus off of that really easily and try and go for game as well. Lets you banish a really high attack monster to get a search and then try and go for game with the direct attack next turn. Really, really mean card. I mainly use it to dodge stuff like, oh, my opponent tries to kill my stuff and chain, banish, search, plus off of that. If you search mirror, you can summon him right then and there during your opponent's turn to kind of act as a chum blocker. Pretty nice card overall. Next up, we got 1 Salamangreat Sanctuary. I've been kind of flip-flopping between playing 1 and 2 of this. Most people play 1, and I'm leaning more towards 2, but I'm going to go with 1 for now. The big thing is that it's a free search, basically, kind of. So the Salamangreat Link 1, whenever it's Link summoned, you get to search a copy of Salamangreat Sanctuary right then and there. So that's literally just a free card out of that. Speaking of though, this card is really integral to the Salamangreat playstyle. I've kind of mentioned it before, but Salamangreats focus on something called Reincarnation Summon, where you use a copy of a Link monster to summon another copy of itself and get bonus effects. So like for instance, Sunlight Wolf has 1 effect, but if you summon a Sunlight Wolf using a Sunlight Wolf, you get 2 effects. So pretty cool. And this card makes it to where you can use a copy of a Link monster for the full requirements of another copy of itself. So that right then and there just lets you just go off on some really stupid combos. It makes you use a whole Heatleo for another Heatleo, and just it's so good. It really is. It also has some stupid life point gaining effect that never comes up, but eh. Moving on, 1 Monster Reborn, 1 Forest Burial, 1 for 1. All kind of just goes hand in hand. Moving on to the traps, 2 Salamangreat Roar. This is the Salamangreat counter trap that's basically an Infernity Barrier. If you control a Salamangreat Link monster and your opponent activates a card or effect, you activate this, negate that card or effect, destroy it. And then if this is in your graveyard and you Link summon a Salamangreat Link monster using another copy of itself, you can set this card from your graveyard but banish it when it leaves the field. Really good card. And then we got 2 Salamangreat Rage. This card is stupid. So it's just straight up 1 for 1 by itself, where if you activate it, you basically send a Salamangreat you control to the graveyard, pop a card your opponent controls. Nothing really major right there. But where it becomes really broken, kind of, is if you happen to have a Salamangreat Link monster that was Reincarnation summoned, you target that monster and then pop cards your opponent controls equal to its Link arrow. So like again, using Heatleo, the deck's boss monster, he's a Link 3, he was Link summoned using another copy of himself, you target the Heatleo, you pop 3 cards your opponent controls. For free, basically. You don't even really lose anything. You lose your copy of Rage, but that doesn't matter. You get to add it back to your hand thanks to Sunlight Wolf anyways, and Falco and a bunch of other stuff. So, really good card. Helps with the control aspect alongside the hand traps and everything. Just really, really obnoxious overall. Moving on to the extra deck, we got 2 copies of Mirage Stalio. I know some people like to play 1 because he's easily recyclable thanks to the whole deck strategy and everything, but again, I'm a Warrior Wart, so I like to go with 2 just in case, and this thing is just too good not to play 2 of in my opinion, but eh. So basically this thing, just needs 2 level 3 monsters to go into. Once per turn, you can detach and seize materials, summon any freaking Salamangreat from your deck. Just for free. Summon it, doesn't negate the effects or anything, just summon it for free. You can't activate any monster effects except for fire monsters for the rest of the turn, but that's irrelevant. You get a free summon from deck, and then if this thing's used for the link summon of a Salamangreat Link monster, you get to bounce a card your opponent controls. And it's got good stats too, 2k attack, that's really, really good. Moving on to the Link monsters though. First and foremost, we got triple Salamangreat Baylinks. This is the card that searches out the Salamangreat Sanctuary whenever it's link summoned, and then if it's in the graveyard and a Salamangreat card you control will be destroyed, you can banish it from your graveyard instead. 3 Sunlight Wolf. This is the main card you usually see that people usually end their boards on because he's just easier to make than Heat Leo. But anyway, so basically once per turn, if a Salamangreat monster is, sorry, if a monster in general, I believe, right? Yeah, if a monster is no more special summoned to a zone he points to, you can target one of your Salamangreat monsters in your graveyard, add it to your hand, but you can't use it for the rest of the turn. And then if it was link summoned as another copy of itself, once per turn you can target a Salamangreat spell or trap card in your graveyard, add it to your hand as well. So it's basically, if you link summon him just using himself as well, you get to, once per turn, add a dude from your graveyard to your hand if you summon something to a zone he points to. And then once per turn, you get to add one of your spells and trap cards from your graveyard to your hand. So it basically makes up for using 2 monsters to make it, and then a third to make it another copy of itself. So really good card overall, pretty stupid. Moving on, we got 2 Heat Leo. This is the deck's boss monster, technically speaking, right now. He doesn't feel like a boss monster, so I think that the guy who plays him in Frames is going to get a bigger thing. I've heard he just recently played a Link 4 that was pretty nutty, so I guess we'll have to wait to see that thing. But Heat Leo is a pretty cool card overall. Whenever he's Link summoned, you can target one of your opponent's spell or trap cards that's in the spell and trap card zones, which means you can't target their field spells, which is annoying. Shuffle that card back into the deck. That's not once per turn, so he's made to fully take advantage of the reincarnation summon mechanic, because you make him shuffle back something, reincarnate, shuffle back something. It's super annoying. Speaking of reincarnation, if he was reincarnated, once per turn you can target one of your Salamangreat monsters in your graveyard and one monster your opponent controls. Make your opponent's monster that you targeted the same attack as your targeted Salamangreat monster. A lot of the lower level Salamangreat monsters have no attack, or if they do, it's 500. So you target one of your like little dudes and one of your opponent's big monsters, drop it to 0. It's so good. And that actually combos very well with the deck's fusion monster, who I might as well cover here as well. Salamangreat Violet Chimera, who basically he needs a Salamangreat Link monster and another Link monster to go into, if I remember right. Or no, sorry, Salamangreat monster plus a Link monster. And basically, if this thing battles a monster whose attack is different than its original attack, this guy's attack becomes double. And if he was, he also gains the attack of the monsters that were used to fusion summon him. And I believe if he was summoned using another copy of himself, yeah, if this card is fusion summoned using another copy of itself as material, the attack of monsters, that monster's attack becomes 0 during damage calculation only. So it can, if you do happen to play more than one, you can do it. But honestly, you never need more than one of this thing, because it by itself, typically speaking, like let's say you fuse it using Heat Leo and I don't know, your opponent has a Boral loadout, okay? So that's 1500 plus what? What's 1150 if I'm doing my math right? So that's right there, 2650 added onto the 28, and then if he attacks your opponent's monster that has like a changed attack stat, his attack goes up even higher. You can double this card's attack into the end of the it just doubles up. So if that's like that's what, like 5,900, something like that, doubles to 10k, does massive damage, you win. It's a one-shot wonder, really, basically. Moving on to the next links though, we got Hida, the Fire Charmer Ablaze. This card is really good when going against a mirror match, because basically once per turn you can target one of your opponent's fire monsters in their graveyard, summon it to your side of the field, but I believe its effects are negated. Summon it to your zone. Nope, it does not negate. And then if this card's and then if this link summon card is destroyed by battle or is destroyed by an opponent's card effect while in the owner's monster zone, you can add a fire monster 1500 or less defense from your deck to your hand. So it searches out your fire monsters with 1500 or less defense, which is like 90% of the deck, I believe. And then also it can just summon another monster from your opponent's graveyard and just kind of go off from there. It's so good. One Nightmare Phoenix. This is the only Nightmare I play because it is a fire, so that means if I happen to use it alongside Marat Stalio, I can still use its effect. One Encode Talker for extra damage, and one Transcode Talker for bringing back my DLink Monsters. And that is it. I absolutely love this deck. I can't wait to see what Konami does more with Salamangreats. It's going to be very interesting to see what they do give the deck in the future, because I think it's very clear that this deck has become a fan favorite. It's very, very popular, and honestly it might just be because it was a structure deck and was so easy to get a hold of, and not to mention it's just flat out a really good deck overall. It's got a nice design. I really like the idea of reincarnation summons. It's a cool idea and concept, and I hope Konami messes around with it a little bit more. I only wish the ritual was actually playable, because the ritual is kind of cool in its own right, but it's absolute trash. So yeah. So what do you guys think of Salamangreats? Thank you all for watching. Have a great day. If it's your birthday, happy birthday. See y'all later. Peace out and goodbye.